Hi, and welcome to the Honest Work Designs channel. My name is Haley Kraus. I'm the maker and creator for HWD, and today's project is a tobacco pipe. I'm really excited about this project because it's so outside of what I normally scheme up. It's really my first venture into any pipe making, and actually kind of my first stab at any fine detail wood carving as well. The commission came to me via a dear friend who does really amazing pipe restoration work, but kind of wanted something made specifically for him. So I drew upon his love of Edgar Allen Poe and dreamed up the Edgar Allen pipe. It's basically a modified ball and claw where the raven head replaces the ball. I had to do a ton of research for this project, so thanks so much, Kreg Seder and Gary Harmon. Your guys' videos were awesome and super helpful. I'm going to toss a link in the description for anybody watching if they want some more insight in how I figured it out. With that, this episode is going to tackle prepping the blank, placing the airways, and clearing out a good portion of the excess to get ready for carving, which will come in the next episode. Please feel free to leave comments, questions, concerns, tips down below. I'd love to hear them all, and I hope you guys enjoy. I started out with a cherry blank that was a little bit longer than I needed. I chose cherry because it has almost the exact same grain density as briar burl. Since I didn't have a jointer at this time, I used my angle arm saw to get the block square. I simply did this by cutting it to size and using those freshly cut 90-degree angles up against the fence to create 90-degree angles perpendicularly. Call this the perfect way to get the block square, but it did a good enough job to where I was confident the airways would meet. With the block cut, it was time to scope out the design so I could figure out exactly where to put the bore for the bowl as well as the airway. Once I finished up the sketch, I measured to the center of the raven's head since that's where the bore for the bowl will go. I then translated this measurement to the top face of the cherry blank as one of the cut indicators. I believe it was about 3.5 inches. I also measured and marked halfway across the width of the cherry blank. The point at which the two lines intersect would be where we would drill our bore. After that, it was time to mark where we would put our airway. Knowing I wanted the bottom of the board to be at about 1 3/4 inches, I used the same method of cross-hatching to determine the point at which to drill. To fully wrap my head around the 3D aspect of the design, I quickly sketched out the raven on 3 faces of the cherry blank just to make sure before I made any cuts that all my I's were dotted and my T's were crossed. Then with some painter's tape, I marked 1 3/4 inches from the tip of my 3/4 inch rounded bit. This would be an indicator for me on when to stop drilling. At 1 3/4 inch, the edge of the tape would be flush with the blank, and I would know to stop. To keep the bit from walking too much, i.e. moving left to right and not giving me a perfect circle, I clamped the cherry blank down to the table of the drill press. In hindsight, I might recommend a drill press or tabletop locking clamp, or a jig if you plan to do multiple pipes, but this actually worked out pretty good. We ended up with a pretty cylindrical bore with few imperfections. I took the cuts in small steps to clear out the sawdust and debris so that the friction between the debris and the bit wouldn't cause burning in the bore. For the airway, I used a similar method to mark the point at which to stop drilling on the bit. I did, however, use Sharpie this time so that the chuck would have a tighter grip on the smaller 7/8 bit. So that the stem would actually fit into the pipe, I used, I think, a 1/4 inch bit to drill about a 1/2 inch deep so that the airway of the stem would align nicely with the airway of the pipe. Next, it was time to clear some of the excess. To do this, I simply used my bandsaw and followed along the sketch I had made earlier. When cutting, I was sure to keep a good distance from the interior chamber wall to the exterior chamber wall. This was to keep it from burning out or to keep it from overheating when the new owner actually went to use it. Since I had cut away the top sketch, I had to go ahead and reinstate it. In the same manner, I used the geometry and the dimensions found on the side sketch to kind of translate those to the top. So for instance, on the side, I measured the depth at which the beak met the face and then translated that to the top. I think it was about 1.25 inches. I I did the same for the remaining exterior features. So for instance, where the face started to taper, but then went back out again for the claws, where it started to taper back towards the actual stem, essentially considering the widest points at which I wanted to cut. It's funny, this being my first pipe, every step that I was successful, it just made the next step a little bit more stressful. It was almost as if, you've made it this far, don't screw it up now. Needless to say, when the functional cuts were in, I had a clear airway and a good draw and had removed a good portion of the excess. I was relieved and excited and ready to get carving. So as a quick recap, we made it through prepping the blank for the airways, placing the airways, and then clearing out some excess wood so we can really get into carving in the next episode. I had so much fun with these first couple of steps, learned so much, but if you guys have any tips, advice, questions, concerns, please feel free to leave those in the comments. If you're interested in seeing how the rest of the pipe build pans out, please feel free to subscribe, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.